Hi, and welcome to Permaculture. If you haven't heard of permaculture before, here's a basic definition. Permaculture is a holistic design system for creating sustainable human settlements and food production systems. It is also committed to preserving and extending natural ecosystems. It is a movement concerned with sustainable, environmentally sound land use and the building of stable communities through the harmonious interrelationship of humans, plants, animals, and the earth. Now, you might be thinking, well, why was permaculture developed in the first place? What's wrong with how things are done now? Well, unfortunately, permaculture came about as a philosophical, ethical, and practical response to modern methods of producing food, creating energy, and organizing our societies, because these methods have done a great deal of damage to the planet and to us as people. Permaculture design philosophy. It's a sad fact to have to face up to, but humans really are in danger of destroying themselves. The way we treat the earth and its resources could, if we don't do anything to change, be the end of us as a species. If we became extinct as the result of something outside our control, then, well, fair enough. But to be the architects of our own demise and not to take action to stop it? Now that really is shameful. It makes our claims that we are conscious, thoughtful creatures look like a very hollow boast. Looking at the way that industrial societies have treated the environment, permaculture designers have realized that the planet cannot sustain the damage that we are causing it. By modern agricultural techniques, monoculture forestry, and thoughtless settlement design. Make no mistake, if we ignore the evidence before our eyes, the rising global temperature, the degradation of our soils, the destruction of animal species, the pollution of the oceans, and the fierce individualism fostered by consumer capitalism, we run the very real risk of abolishing life on Earth. We act like we have conquered nature, and treat its resources as if they were never-ending and are there only to serve us. But by seeking growth at any cost and striving simply to accumulate more and more, whether it be power, wealth, resources, or land, we have diminished the planet and ourselves. Some would even say we have acted immorally. The good news, though, is that while we may have been the cause of the dire situation that we face, we are also the ones who can change it and literally make the world a better place. The evidence is plentiful about the need to change. We can't keep kicking the can down the road, and people are the resource that can make it. The things that have enabled us to assert dominion of nature, intellectual progress, technical innovation, and a drive to better ourselves are the same things that will allow us to heal the damage we have done. Ethics. Permaculture is a part of the ethical change that needs to happen if we are to survive. It isn't the only answer to these problems, but it is an important element of what should be a global debate about how we move forward in a sustainable, responsible way. Which is great, because one of the things permaculture tries to do is encourage honest, open debate. After all, we all have a stake in how we treat the planet now and in the future. Bill Mollison, one of the original architects of permaculture, said that there is one prime ethical directive to permaculture, and that is to take responsibility for our own existence and that of our children. And we need to do this together to realize that we are all in this situation together and to harness our complementary talents to find solutions and build a better tomorrow. We will either survive together or none of us will survive. In nature, we see integrated ecosystems where different elements are all bound together in mutually beneficial relationships. We have to start looking at human society in the same way. Life should be cooperative rather than competitive. It is only our choices that have made competition a central part of how we interact with one another. So, equally, it is within our power to choose another way. In many tribal cultures, for instance, such as the Aboriginal people of Australia, life is not viewed as a closed, narrow artificial form of competition. A competition that, in modern industrial societies, keeps everyone, from the bosses to the workers, trapped in the same ultimately unfulfilling system. Instead, life is seen as something that is greater than any one of us. A beautiful elemental force that encompasses all living things and which should be celebrated in all its diversity. By renouncing materialist culture and by respecting all of life, we will find a more meaningful way of existence, both on a day-to-day level and as a human society as a whole. Combined with our technological abilities, adopting such a viewpoint could radically transform our world for the better. Think about it. We already know how to solve most of the problems we have caused. We know how to harness renewable energy resources such as solar and wind power, so we don't have to keep burning polluting fossil fuels. We know how to manage wild food stocks so we don't have to drive species to extinction. And we know how to cultivate land so that we protect and nourish the soil and the plants that depend upon it, rather than depleting the soil so that nothing can grow. We know all these things, yet we still choose the destructive ways of life. The crude sense of life, as one in which accumulation takes precedence above all else, diminishes us all. We need to change, and permaculture is one system of beliefs, ideas, and practices that can spearhead that change. Permaculture is built upon 3 ethical principles. All the ways of producing food, organizing communities, generating energy, and so on that feature in permaculture practice stem from these ethics. The first ethic of permaculture is care of the earth. This means exactly what it says, taking care of the planet that sustains and nourishes us. The earth gives us what we need, and to ensure that we can survive and prosper, we need to treat it with consideration and respect. This means ensuring that all systems on the planet, both living and non-living things, are cared for. From the soil that nourishes the plants we need, the forests that give us the air we breathe, and the rivers that circulate the water we drink. It is an ethical responsibility to treat these ecosystems with care to ensure that they can continue to provide the things that humans, other animals, and the systems themselves need. The second ethical principle that forms the basis of permaculture is care of people. This means meeting people's needs so that they can enjoy a good quality of life and fulfill their potential, but without damaging the planet. The third ethic, when permaculture was just starting to be formulated, was defined as set limits to population and consumption. This has since morphed into the phrase most commonly used today, share the surplus. The idea is essentially the same. Don't use more than you need or that the planet's life systems can sustain. Limit your consumption to no more than you need, and limit consumption of resources so that what we take from the earth does not damage or deplete it. On a micro level, this ethical principle can refer to not buying products you don't need or swapping excess crops with fellow cultivating neighbors. But it also refers to larger concepts, such as the way capitalism damages us and the planet by demanding excessive consumption above and beyond what we need. As you have no doubt realized, the 3 ethical principles that underpin permaculture are interlinked. By caring for the earth, we give people a more sustainable future on the planet. By caring for people, we foster a sense that we are all connected and that we must all take responsibility for our actions. And by sharing the surplus, we turn our back on destructive competition and create a more harmonious way of life and way of treating the planet. Some people claim that these ethical principles are flights of fancy because our ethics are innate and somehow set in stone. But history tells us another story. Human ethics typically develop and evolve over time in response to lessons learned about what needs to be done to ensure our survival. Ethics promote behaviors that do not threaten our existence. Humans tend to act in order to survive. And given the fact that our behavior today really is threatening our survival, it is not too much of a stretch of the imagination to see that the principles at the heart of permaculture will become more and more prevalent in people's minds. They could change how we act as moral creatures. If we keep these ethics at the center of our lives, we develop a different way of looking at the world. For instance, by sticking to the principles of caring for the earth as well as people, we start to ask questions such as, what does this person or land have to give if I cooperate with them? Rather than the more selfish question that is too often asked in our society today, what can I get from this person or this land? The first type of question fosters unity and cooperation. The second promotes competition and conflict. By changing our standpoint and the way we look at the world, common ethical principles also lead to new rules of behavior. Following on from the ethics of permaculture, 2 rules of behavior come into play: the rule of necessitous use and the rule of conservative use. The rule of necessitous use states that we leave any natural ecosystem alone until are forced to use it out of strict necessity. Then, if we do have to use a natural resource, we should apply the rule of conservative use. This rule has 4 practical components to it. Number 1, we must always strive to reduce waste and reduce pollution when using a resource so that we use it as efficiently as possible. Secondly, we should always replace lost minerals, such as in a soil ecosystem that we have used for agriculture. Number 3 is to always do a careful energy accounting of our resource use, and so try to balance what we take out with what we return to the ecosystem, and so minimizing our impact upon it. And fourthly, we should make an assessment of the long-term impact our use of a resource will have on it, and on us as a society. This is to counteract the short-term approach of too many of our current interactions with the natural world that sees short-term gain override long-term sustainability. If these rules guide our behavior as a species, we will quickly realize how connected we are to nature and how all of life on Earth is interdependent. I mean, if we observe this interconnectedness everywhere in nature, from the adaptations animal species have evolved to thrive in certain environment, to the symbiotic relationship plants have developed over time that benefit all parties, But somehow, we've got to the point where we see ourselves outside this intricate web of life, above it somehow. When we understand that we are not separate and that we depend upon a healthy, diverse natural world, it will be in the interests of everyone to preserve natural systems and treat them with respect. Our fate is tied up with the fate of the rest of life on this planet. Given that we evolved from animals, we could even expand the second permaculture ethic, care for people, to care for species, an ethic that recognizes our common origins with all life on Earth. So fundamentally, you could say that permaculture's ethics boils down to how to act to sustain the Earth. In the past, the different ways of providing food for ourselves have not had this idea at their core. Feudal systems of land ownership that kept the many impoverished, but the few rich were not sustainable, leading to famine and revolution. While more modern methods, such as using vast tracts of land to produce a single crop or raise a single species of livestock animal, have also become unsustainable as they have depleted the health of the land drastically. If we look to nature for a way of producing abundance while caring for the earth, the best example is probably the forest. These ecosystems are very productive, support many species of plants, have a complex interrelationships with lots of types of animals, and the benefits they provide to the soil balance with what they take from it to grow. In a sense, this is a communal system, with all the members of it living better off from its permanence and continued health, and with all energy that the system needs coming from the system itself. In contrast, modern agriculture relies on external sources of energy, such as fuel, fertilizers, and pumped-in water. We can make use of this idea of communal permanence by copying the forest style of plant growth for our own food production. We'll talk more about forest gardening later, but suffice it to say, forest points the way to healthy, productive, and long-lasting systems that are sustainable. Think about it. Wouldn't you like to plant a tree and know that your children's children won't cut it down? Permaculture and landscape in society. With this method of growing food as a starting point, we can go on to see how applying the same principles that work within it, productive energy flows, self-sustainability of systems, minimal waste, and so on, to our households, towns, and cities can make for a more stable, functional, productive, and practical landscape for us all to live in. And you know what? We can totally do it. We have the technology and technical know-how to design agricultural systems, houses, and communities that benefit everyone and everything. At present, our towns and cities and the vast majority of our agricultural land are pretty unproductive spaces. The first thing permaculture looks to do is make these areas more productive in a sustainable way. So, for instance, a permaculture practitioner would look to harvest rainwater that currently runs off our roofs and down the drain, and use it within the system, say for watering plants. Or they might plant several different species of crops in an agricultural area to create a more productive and sustainable method of agricultural production than monoculture. These are just two ways to rethink our already used areas of land. As long as we curb our greed for more than we need, we can be perfectly happy and sustained by the areas we already inhabit. The knock-on effect of this type of productive land use is to free up the rest of the globe for natural ecosystems to be rehabilitated. If we are smarter about how we use what we have already got, we won't need to exploit the wilderness. And thriving wild ecosystems is essential for the health of the planet. These two things complement each other. Settlement design is necessarily human-centered, as we have to ensure we provide for our needs. But by making sure settlements are designed as best they can be, we also promote conservation. Things are interlinked. Are you sensing a theme here? Natural ecosystems are under pressure as never before. Forests are being cleared at an extraordinary rate. Oceans are being turned into barren deserts by population and overfishing. And the entire time, animal and plant species are becoming extinct, some before we've even had a chance to discover them. Permaculture purposes three responses to this destruction. The first is to care for surviving natural systems. This is easily done. Just leave them alone. If we let the wilderness be, it will heal itself as nature always finds a way. The second is to rehabilitate land that we have degraded or eroded through our actions. We can do this simply by choosing to grow certain assemblies of plants that will replenish the soil with nutrients and bind it together so it doesn't erode. Again, nature provides an answer. We just need to listen. And the third is to create our own complex living environments, which will provide for our needs and help preserve a diversity of life. If we consider that all life forms are, in essence, native to Earth, we all have the opportunity to contribute to the preservation of those life forms. So the first thing to do is get our homes, our gardens, our cities, and our farms in order, so that they support us and we do not have to exploit the natural world anymore. Permaculture provides many great ways to do this. Secondly, we must look at limiting the human population on Earth. It's a conversation no one really seems to want to have. But if we increase our number too much, we will inevitably need to encroach further upon the wilderness, and with too much human pressure, it will surely be laid to waste, and we will have sown the seeds of our own demise. Permaculture is, then, also about personal responsibility. Those who practice it create gardens to provide themselves and their families with food, seek ever more efficient ways to reduce their energy consumption, and try to limit their own impact on Earth. We can all take small steps today to help. For instance, you can change your shopping habits to purchase local, sustainable, chemical-free products, rather than industrial agriculture. Or you can turn a small corner of your garden over to the wild animals and plants that find their way there. You'd be surprised how many species of insect, amphibian, lizard, and butterfly will make a home in even the smallest of gardens. If we all took such responsibility, think what we could achieve. We all have a part to play in supporting, creating, and investing in natural ecosystems. If we do change, we are showing our respect for all life forms on the planet. Now that's an ethic for everyone to get behind. So, permaculture has its ethical dimension, and it's very important, but it is also a practical design system. And the concepts and themes in permaculture design are what we are going to talk about next time.